All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So it's our first day with everybody back in, well, some people back in the room, but hopefully things will get better. So let's go ahead and get started with what we got. So yesterday we were working on graphing quadratic functions by identifying the axis of symmetry and vertex, and then determine if a parabola has a maximum or a minimum. So those were the things we covered yesterday. What we're going to be doing today is going to be graph the quadratic inequalities. We did a little bit of that about these 3 slides, and we're going to move on over to where we left off. So it's going to be the same steps largely. Create a table of values. Recall that the vertex should be in the middle row, and just in case you forgot, we're going to use this formula up here to find out where the x value for the middle row should be. So once we use this, we're going to plug that number into the middle row, and then we're going to fill out the rest of the values. After we graph it, or as we're getting ready to graph it, I should say, use a dashed line for less than and greater than symbols. Then you would use a solid line for the less than or equal to, or the greater than or equal to signs. You're also going to use the shading, well, I was about to say use the shading tool, but you're going to shade above the line for greater than or equal to symbols, and below the line for less than or equal to signs. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to need to do to graph these, so again, just like yesterday, we're going to grab our vertex formula, or actually now this is the axis of symmetry formula. And what this is going to do is it's going to let us know where the axis, well, the axis of symmetry is where both sides are going to be the same. You know, you're going to have it mirrored on both sides. So let's go ahead and plug this in. So remember, it's you use your standard form ax squared plus bx plus c. Check your formula. Make sure it's got all the terms. Make sure it's got all of the stuff. Right, so in this case, we do have an A, B, and C value. And I'm going to take my B, which is in this case 2, but the formula also makes me have to make it into a negative. So I'm going to put negative here, and then 2A, so 2A. And my A value in this case is just 1. We don't have a number there, so it's going to be just 1. So I'm going to put 2 and 1. Negative 2 over 2, and then I'm going to divide this out. So in this case, my axis of symmetry is at -1. So I could put my axis of symmetry here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it. So that way we have -1 right there. So we know whatever's on this side should be the same as whatever it will be on this side. Now we're going to put -1 in the middle, and we're going to number down. So number down, and sometimes it'll help.
Students and staff, oh, how wonderful it is to hear students again. This is Miss Brody, welcome back. I'm so glad to see some of you. Your masks are beautiful, your eyes are beautiful. Teachers, this is our first day, trial and error, trial run. Will you please email me the number of students you have in your classroom? I will be going around distributing headphones this morning for Zoom meetings. So please get me that ASAP. I will start with the lower level and then work my way to the second level. Please email me the numbers that you have so I can put them on my cart and make sure everybody here today gets a set of or a pair of earphones. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.
11 or 10? Oh no, this is this. Okay, and so there we go. We got our axis of symmetry. And put that in the number up, number down. If it helps, you can look downward. So in this case, it would be -2, -3, -4. This way, and then counting up 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, in this case, I only go up to 2. So the next thing we need to do is take these numbers that we put in our table, and we're going to start to put them in here. So first number is going to be -4, so I'm going to put -4 right here. And don't forget, and remember, you can do this on a separate piece of paper. The packets don't give you a whole lot of room to write these in. So, but hopefully you get the idea. So I'm going to put -4 in here, -4 in there, and just evaluate it. So take care of all the operations we have going. So I'm going to put -4 square. -4 times -4 will be +16. 2 times -4 would be -8. And -2. So and then put this together. So 16 minus 8 would be 8 minus 2. So we would have 6. So I'm going to put 6 right here on the first one. So that's our first output. And now we're going to go to the next one. So again, I don't have a lot of space, so I'm going to have to erase this and put in the next number. But I'm going to leave everything that doesn't change. So I'm going to go ahead and take -3 and put this in there. -3 squared is going to be 9. So -3 times -3. 2 times -3 is -6. And kind of like what I did yesterday, I'm going to put my negatives together. So I get 6. Well, in this case, 6 and 2 would be 8. But since they're both negative, that's going to make -8. So it's going to be 9 minus 8, which is going to be 1. We'll put 1 down here. And then we're going to move on to the next number, which is going to be -2. And I'm going to go ahead and square -2. So we have -2 square that. We have 4. So that's -2 times -2. And in this case here, I have -2 plus and +2, not plus, but +2. And that's going to be -4 minus 2. And I'm going to put these together. So I'm going to put my two negative numbers together, which in this case is -4 and -2. So that's going to be -6. So that's going to be 4 minus 6. And that's going to be -2. So I'm going to put that number right in here. And now I'm going to move on to 1. So put -1 in here. And so I have -1 squared. That's going to be, oh yeah, 1. Thank you. All right, and then fill out the rest of this stuff here. So 2 times -1 is -2, -2 here. And then just work this out. So I have, put my two negatives together, I have -4. So it's going to be 1 minus 4. It's going to be -3. And then from here in the middle, we can expect it to repeat the pattern. So the next number should be -2, 1, and then 6. Keep going with this. 0 and 0, which is pretty easy because 0 squared is 0. 2 times 0 would be 0. And that just leaves me with pretty much just -2, which again, that pattern repeats itself. So we should be able to see that pretty well. And then here I have 1. So put 1 in here. 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 would be 2 minus 2. So that -2 is still there. Put my positive numbers together now. So this is 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. So put 1 right in there. And then the last one's going to be 2. So put 2 up here. That's going to be 4 plus 4 minus 2. So put my two positive numbers together. That'd be 8 minus 2. And 8 minus 2 would be 6. Now I have my entire table filled out, which is good. Now we can start plotting on the graph where that's going to be. So -4 up 6. So go back 4 up 6. And then next one here is going to be -3, 1. So go back 3 up 1. -2, 2. Or -2, -2, I should say. -2 down 2. And then -1, -3. And now it's starting to look like an actual parabola. And since it repeats itself, we should be able to just mirror all of these points. Or you can go ahead and keep going, like 1 over 1 up 1, and then here it'd be over 2 up 6. And that looks like a parabola. So remember yesterday I was telling you that we should be able to find the pattern. So the pattern's kind of easy to know. So if it looks kind of off, it probably is off. And you know, check your numbers if one of them doesn't match up. All right, so now we need to actually get into graphing it, which I don't think I have a tool for this one here. I have this one, but remember we need a, well, in this case, we have no or equal to, so this means we're going to need a dashed line. So I'm going to try to make a, and this is going to be a little bit tough, so just do my best to draw a dashed line. It goes through as many of these points as I can. Because remember, we cannot land exactly on the line. So if I were to pick something like 1, 1, and I plug y and x as 1, it would come out to be something like 1 is greater than 1, which is false. So we cannot pick something that lands exactly on the line. That's why it's a dashed line, so because we can't pick anything that lands on the line. So we have to pick one or the other side to be on the line. And that's the third step. So step 3 was to shade the figure. So in this case, I'm going to find out which side to shade. So grab my highlighting tool. And that depends on which way this mouth is open. If it is open towards the Y, then you shade on the top of the graph because the Y they usually put here is on top. So just going to shade here. And we only need to shade one thing, so don't worry about having to shade multiple things. Just color it in. It doesn't have to be too dark or anything. And that's it. We're done with the first one. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. So a couple of things we can tell before even graphing this. So I have my a value, that's the first term with the x square, is a negative. Remember, this means that our graph is going to open downward. So like negative means a frown. Right? And then positive, which in this case, this is positive, so it's like a smile. All right, so let's go ahead and do the first step and let's get our axis of symmetry. So I'm going to take my b value, which in this case is 4, so negative 4. And remember, we got to make it negative because that formula comes with the negative. 2 times a, so 2, and then my a value in this case is negative 1. Don't forget the signs do matter. And let's see, negative 4 over negative 2. Negative divided by negative will be positive, and 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2, so that's going to make 2 my middle number. So grab 2, put it in here. Take a few numbers, number it down, number it up. Okay. Now I'm going to have to erase this part here because we're going to need a new form. We're going to do this new equation here. So negative x squared, but I'm going to replace x with a parenthesis so that I can put these numbers in there. Plus 4x minus 1. And let me see if I can move these over just a bit. Okay. And then first number up is going to be negative 1, so I'm going to put negative 1 in here. And again, remember, if you have a number on the outside here, you got to follow your order of operations. So that's going to be, well, the PEMDAS, so parentheses, and then exponents. So you would square it first, and then this is like multiplying by negative 1. So exponent, then multiply. So let's go ahead and square negative 1. So that's negative 1 times negative 1. But this number on the outside is going to jump on, so it's going to become, it's going to make this number become a negative 1. And then here I have plus, well, actually in this case it would be negative because a negative times a positive would be negative. And then here I have negative 1. So I got a lot of negative numbers. Since they're all negative, I'm just going to add them, like just combine them at once. So negative 1 is going to be negative 2. and -4, so that's going to be -6. All right, next number. So again, I'm going to just reuse this space here. I'm going to put in 0. And 0 squared is 0. 4 times 0 is going to be 0, and that's going to leave me with just -1. All right, next number, I'm going to use 8. 8, what are we talking about? 1. So put 1 in here. So 1 square is 1, but then again, this negative kind of throws everything off because it's going to multiply this by -1, which is going to make it negative. Plus 4 minus 1. And this is going to be 2, because if I put these two together, it's going to be -2. So it's going to be 4 minus 2. It's going to be 4 minus 2. Oops. There you go. And then here I got 2, so I'm going to put that one in next. So 2. 2 squared is going to be 4. The negative jumps in. 4 times 2 would be 8. All right, now, in this case, I'm going to put my negatives together. So I got -4, -1, put them together. You got -5. 8 minus 5. In this case, it will be 3. All right, and again, we should have the pattern repeat here. So it should be 2, -1, -6. So I'm going to put 3 in here. So 3 squared is 9 plus, and then here I have 12 minus 1. Put my two negatives together, that'd be -10. 12 minus 10 would be 2, which again, that's good because we got this number here on the other side of that. And then now, next one would be 4. 4 squared is 16, but again, it's going to be negative. It's going to become negative here. 4 times 4 would be 16, and then the -1 is going to stay there. And that's going to be 0 minus 1, which is just going to be -1. And then here I got 5. Will be our last one. 5 and 5. So 5 squared is 25. Plus, in this case, we got 20 minus 1. And let's see. Well, okay, I have two negatives, so that would be -26. 20 minus 26 would be -6. So there we go. We got all of our table filled out. And let's go ahead and graph using plot points. Plot these points out. -1, -6. So that'd be right here. 0, -1. Over 1 up 2. 2, 3. So over 2 up 3. 3, 2. Over 3 up 2. And then 4, -1. And 5, -6. And again, that looks like a very good parabola shape. And in this case here, I'm going to go ahead and use this one because we need a solid line. So remember, this thing determines whether we're going to need a solid line or a dashed line. If it has no or equal to, that's a dashed line. In this case, we need a solid line. So let's try my best to draw this line that goes through as many of those points as I can. And it's not going to be perfect, but this is probably the better tool for drawing parabolas. Okay, so I'm gonna make it go a little bit further down. Now we need to find out which side we need to shade. So third step is to shade using this thing here. So in this case, it looks like we have an or equal to, and it's facing away from the Y. So the mouth is open away from the Y. So if it's opening away from the Y, we got to shade the side that's not on that side. So that means the bottom side. And there we go, we shade the inside. Okay. Now shading the inside or outside doesn't really matter because here we shaded the top, here we shaded the bottom, and they're both on the inside. So again, it's not really outside or inside, it's just top or bottom. And there we go. So we got the first one's done. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Next set. We only got 2 more to go, so this will be kind of a shorter one. Graph each inequality. So, well, let's see, this is gonna be negative, so we know it's gonna open downwards. And remember, when it opens downward, it's gonna have a maximum. So it's a little bit opposite of what you might think. Negative 18 over 2a, which in this case, 2 times negative 3. Multiply the bottom numbers, 2 and 3, so that'd be negative 6. 18 divided by 6, so they're both negative, so that's going to make this into positive. And sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't. But just remember, axis of symmetry means that it's going to be symmetrical about this point here, or this line. All right, so let's go ahead and put 3 in the middle of our table. Number up, number down. Take our equation here, and we're going to substitute in all of these numbers. So negative 3x squared. Leave a little bit more space because I'm going to have to put numbers in there. Plus 18x, 18x, put a parenthesis where x should be, minus 22. All right, first number we're going to plug in is going to be 0, and we're just going to go down the table, which in this case, it looks pretty obvious because 0 squared and 0 times 3 is going to be 0. So 18 times 0 is also going to be 0. So that's just going to leave us with negative 22. And since this is off the graph, I'm going to go ahead and just fill it in on this side. Because, even if it's wrong, it's not really going to affect the graph, but I would suggest fill it in anyway. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to the next one, which would be 1. So 1 squared, this would be 3 times 1 plus 18 minus 22. 3 times 1 would be, these two, multiply them together, you get negative 3. 18 minus 22, so it's a difference of 4, so that's going to be negative 3 minus 4, so that's going to be negative 7. All right, next number is going to be 2. I think I can get away with just erasing what's going to change, which in this case, I'm going to drop it in here and in here. 2 squared is 4. 18 times 2 is 36. Negative 12 plus 36 minus 22. And if you want to, you can use a calculator on this one. Well, it'd be pretty, you probably don't need it. So 22 and 12, if I put those together, I'd get 34. So that'd be 36 minus 34. 36 minus 34 would be 2. Now let's go ahead and do number 3. So drop a 3 in there. And 3 squared is 9. 18 times 3 is 54. Negative 3 times 9 would be negative 27 plus 54 minus 22. All right, put my two negative numbers together, so that'd be 49. So 54 minus 49. That would be 5. And then here I got 4, so we should get 2. And if you feel very, very confident, you can kind of just fill in the rest of the table. Although, again, like we saw yesterday, if you make a mistake, it would be easier to spot if you saw something out of the ordinary with your table. Okay, and then 3 times 16, 48, so this would be negative 48. 72 minus 22, and that'd be, oops, 50. And that would be 2. So 50 minus 48 would be 2. Now let's go ahead and do 5. So I'm going to put 5 in there. Five square is 25, and 18 times 5, that's 9 times 10, which would be 90. And then multiply this, so that'd be negative 75. And while I'm here, I'm going to go 90 minus 22, so that'd be 70 minus 2, which would be 68. And let's see, what do we got? 7, difference of 7, but it'd be minus 7. And again, that matches with what we have up here, so these two numbers should be the same. So that's probably right. And let's go ahead and fill this in. So I cannot graph negative 22 because that would be way down here. So let's move over to 1 here, 1 and negative 7. So over 1, down 7. Next one would be over 2, down 2. 3, 5, so over 3, up 5. Oh no. Okay, so remember what I said earlier? Over 4, up 2. You'll notice that this is not going to be symmetrical. Over 5, down 7. So this is not symmetrical, so this means that there was a plotting error. So the parabola, again, kind of does this shape here. So what I should have done was go 2, up 2, over 2, up 2. So I would have had something like that instead. But again, it allows you to kind of see when you're making a mistake. Okay. When we need a solid line, because solid line comes from this sign here, so it has an or equal to, which means you can pick an area on the line. So if I were to pick something like x equals 2, right? If I pick this point over 2 and y is, sorry, up 1, okay. X is 1, y is 2. I would get something like 2 is greater than or equal to 2, which would result in a true statement. So that's why we can pick something on the line. Okay, now for this one here, shading it. So the mouth is open towards the y, so that means we shade the top part of the graph. So start on the top and then start shading it. Which in this case, it looks like we got a lot of stuff to shade. Okay, there we go. And this one's been very much stretched. Remember, anytime you add an A value, you're stretching that graph. So that's why this one's really narrow, and it gets, the numbers change really quickly, but the general shape of the parabola is still relatively the same. It's just a little, again, stretched. All right, so this one's another kind of weird one. So when you see ones with missing terms, so there should be 3 terms. This one only has 2. So we know this one's an A, which usually they're not gonna forget the A term if it's a quadratic, because without the A term, it's not a quadratic. It would just be a line. And that's the B. No, that's the C. So remember, you got to look at the X value. So in this case, there is no X. So that means actually our B would be 0. So B is 0. That means 0 goes in here. And I know some students will throw in 6, okay, thinking that, oh, it's the second number, so it's got to be, 6. But again, you got to look for the X values. 2 times 1. And anything, if you divide 0 by anything, it's always going to be 0. So in this case, our axis of symmetry is going to be right here on the y-axis. But that's okay though. Let's just put our numbers here, number some up and number down. Now we're just going to have to, well, I'm going to have to erase this because we're going to need a new workspace. So x squared plus 6. So first number is -3. So -3 squared would be 9 plus 6, and that would be 15. Now, remember, whenever you square a number, in this case, there's no negative on the outside, it would pretty much always be a positive. And if I were to put in, say, +3, it would be the exact same thing. 3 squared would still be +9. And, from this step, it would still be the exact same thing. Now, this one's pretty easy because the axis of symmetry is right on the y-axis, right on 0. So, in this case, it allows me to easily just put the numbers in like that. So in this case, -2, if we square that, remember, -2 times -2 would be +4. And that would be 4 plus 6, which is 10. And if I were to put in +2, that would make no difference because 2 squared would still be 4. So it'd still be 4 and 6. And if I put 1 in here, 1 squared is 1. If I put -1 in there and I square it, it'll still be +1. And in this case, both of them would give me 7. And that's just kind of a shortcut if you have one that's, if you have repeating numbers like the negative and the positive, sometimes it works, but be careful because in this case, it's simple enough to where it would work. Sometimes it won't work the way it should. 0, 6, 0 plus 6 would be 6. There you go. So that one was a pretty fast one just because we were able to use a lot of the same numbers. So I can't graph 15, so I'm going to start with -2 up 10. Oh wait, I can't graph that one either. Looks like the only ones I can graph would be these 3 right here. So -1 up 7, 0, 6, and over 1 up 7. Okay, so this is a very kind of way up there graph. And sometimes it do be like that. Oh, and if you remember yesterday when we were messing with Desmos, whenever you add 6, that's going to shift the entire graph upwards. So this makes sense. Okay, now I use the dashed line because we have no or equal to on the inequality. So this means the only thing left to do now is to shade it. So it's open away from the y, which means we shade the bottom side of this parabola. So it's going to be a lot of shading. Hopefully you got a good pencil. I'm going to be wearing out the lead in your pencil pretty quickly with this one. And there we go. So that's number 2 of the 3 slides. we're ready to move on to the last one and then we'll be done. Okay. Here we go. All right, so we have another one with a missing term. So we have one term, two terms. So we have to find out which one is missing. So look at the term here. So this one is an x, which means that it's the b value. So this one is actually missing its c value. All right, so if we use our axis of symmetry formula, well, okay, the formula makes it negative, so we're gonna plug a negative in, but this term also brings in its own negative. That b value brings its own negative in. 2 times -2, and then your a value down here. And this helps us find out where the turning point of the graph is. So opposite of -2 would be just 2, but here you'd have 4, which in this case, we can't divide it, so we're gonna have to reduce it. So I'm gonna reduce this to 1/2. So it looks like we're gonna have to put 1/2 in here. And I'm gonna draw the axis of symmetry for this one, which again, you don't really have to do it. This is more to help you, if it does help you. If not, then you don't have to do it, unless the directions say so. Now let's go ahead and number down. So I got, looks like -1, -2, -3. So 1, 2, 3. And now I need a number up. So the next number up would be 0, actually. 0, 1, 2. So make sure your numbers are going up, in this case by 1, because sometimes if you skip a number or anything like that, your axis of symmetry is not going to be symmetrical. Well, it will be, but it's not going to look that way at first. Oops. All right, so let's go ahead and plug these in. -2, that'd be -3 squared, minus 2x, which in this case, x is also -3. So I already plugged in -3, just so that way we already have it in there. And remember, we got to square it first. So that's -2 times 9 plus, in this case, 2 times 3 would be 6. And they're both negative, so they're going to cancel each other's negative out. -18, so I'm going to multiply those, and we get -12. Okay, now moving on to the next one, we got 3. Just gonna erase the parts that are changing. Cool. Let's go ahead and square 2. So this would be 2 squared, it'd be 4. Okay. -8. So let's see what we got here. Oh, nope, this would change here. So actually I do have to change this. -2 times -2 would be 4. And in this case I have 4 minus 8, which would be -4. And let's plug in -1. So it looks like just about all of this is going to change. -1 and -1. All right, -1 square that, we get 1. And here I have 2 negatives, so that's going to be positive. -2 plus 2, and that would be 0. All right, now we have one that has a fraction in it. In this case, this fraction can be easily turned into a decimal, which if you want to go ahead and use a decimal on this one, I don't blame you. It's probably not a bad idea to use a decimal. But I'm going to go ahead and use a fraction in this case. So -1/2. And put in -1/2 here. Now, when you square a fraction, and this is something that I notice a lot of, because I run into students all the time that don't know how to do this. And if you remember, I taught college classes for a long time too. And this is one of the things that they usually don't know how to do. So if you square a fraction, it's just like any number. It's that number times itself. So you can put them together, and that would be 1 times 1, which would be 1. Oh, and the negatives will cancel each other out. So in this case, you would get 1/4. And then here we use the top rule, or I can put the number below this one here, so that way I have top number to top number. So that's 2 times -1. 2 times -1 is 2. And then here I have my bottom number, which would have been 1. So 2 times 1 would also be 2, which is why my bottom number is 2 now. Oh, and you know what? I'm going to go ahead and reduce this right now so I get 1. Oops, that looks like a decimal. Let me get rid of that. There we go. And then -2 over 4 plus 1. And this is actually going to reduce to 1/2. So it's going to be 1 minus 1/2. So just in your brain, you know, if you take away half of something, like a dollar, right? You spend half a dollar, you're going to have half a dollar left. Whew, okay. Luckily, that was the only fraction one because it's going to start over from here again. And from here again, it gets a little bit easier. Right now, we're just more checking these things rather than actually trying to figure them out. And 0 is really easy because, well, 0 squared is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times this 2 is 0. And 0 plus 0 is 0. So just nothing but zeros. All right, let's go ahead and put 1 right here. So put 1, 1, 1. So 1 squared is 1. And let's see, -2 times, well, in this case, I'd have to change it to a negative. Change that. That'd be -2. So -2 times 1 would be -2. And then pull this down. We also get -2. So that'd be -2, -2. That would be -4. And then put last one in here. We just put 2. And 4, and then in this case here, -2 times 2 would be -4, and then -8 minus 4. These two will make 8. They're both negative, so I'm going to put 12 down here, so -12. And there you go. So we got our table filled out. That one was a little bit more. We had a little bit more work going on in that case, but oh well, it is what it is. We fixed it. We got it all. So we'll start plotting the points. -2, -4. And sometimes when you do this, actually, it is easy to kind of go off of this axis of symmetry rather than the origin. Remember, you're counting from the origin. So be careful with that. Actually, you know what? I did that just now because -1, 2, 3 should be over here. But I'm going to -4 down, sorry, -2 down 4. Ooh. Okay, yeah, this thing plays tricks on your eyes sometimes, so be careful. -1, 0, and then -½ up ½. So from here, -½ up ½. It's gonna be like right there. 0, 0, over 1 down 4. So from the here, over 1 down 4. And then from here, we can't graph anymore, so we're gonna be done. So let's go ahead and get our parabola going. So this one has the or equal to, and don't forget, it says it on the packet. So if you forget, it's written on there already. So solid line. And not bad. Okay. Next order of business is to shade one side. So the mouth is open away from the Y. So that means we shade the bottom. There we go. And this one also has a fraction in it, so it's going to be probably going to be a little bit more work. All right, so I kind of say that you can kind of tell a little bit about a graph before starting. Like in this case, it's negative, so it's going to open downwards. And our A value, as the A value goes higher, you get more stretch. So that's why this kind of graph, or if we look at the graph for number 5, it's kind of shrinking this way. But again, it's because it's being stretched this way. This one here is actually going to be compressed, so it's going to be kind of a little bit wider before we even start working on it. So you'll get used to this, hopefully. All right, so let's go ahead and find our axis of symmetry. Opposite of -4. So again, there's one that comes with the formula, and then the 4 brings its own, so we end up with 2 of them. And let's see, 2 times 1/2. So opposite of -4 would be +4. 2 times 1, so this would be 2 over 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, which means this is going to be 4 over 1, or just 4. Because remember, fraction means divided, so 4 divided by 1 is still 4. So if you had 4 Skittles and you're not sharing it, and you're only one person eating it, you would get all 4 of them. And I'm going to go ahead and put an axis of symmetry on this one. What was that? Yeah, this will be the last one. What was that? I guess so. All right, now let's see. All right, so put 4 in the middle. 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we got a lot of stuff going on here. If it helps, so the last one I did was a fraction. So I'm gonna go ahead and just cut a break right now, and we're gonna use decimal, because 1/2 is really easy to convert. In fact, most of you would probably already know that right off the top of your head. All right, so I'm going to fill this out as much as I can. Okay, so all right, now I know if you're watching the video on this, you might not see that last part, but that's a 12. But again, we're just going to go ahead and evaluate all of these. So 1 squared would be 0.5 times 1. And then this would be -4 plus 12, 0.5. And I'm going to go ahead and put -4 and 12 together. So that'd be 12 minus 4. That would be 8. So I get 8 plus 0.5. If you have a calculator, that'd be pretty easy. But it's just like if you had $5, sorry, not $5, $8.50. Okay, that'd be $8.50, just like that. And just because, I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the pace on this. So we got 2, 2, put 2 in for x now, so that's gonna be 4. Here I have -8. So half of 4, or again, if you were to just punch that into a calculator, you would just get 2 minus, and I'm going to put these two together, 12 minus 8. 12 minus 8 would be 4, so that's 2 minus 4. Wait, no, plus, wait, plus 12. Oh, that'd be plus 4. Okay, I was like, it's not, something doesn't seem right. But 12 is the positive, and it's the bigger one, so I'm going to go ahead and give it that. And I'm going to totally just not follow my own advice, but like I said, I just want to wind this up now. Let's be done with this now. Put in 3. 3 square would be 9, so put 9 here, be -12. And that makes it really easy to do this one here, because 12 minus 12 would be nothing. So that means I only have to work with what I see here. 9 times 5 is 45. Move that decimal back 1 space, I get 4.5. And last one now, so we got 4. And like I said, I'm just kind of making a mad dash for the end now. 4 square, oops, 4 square. 4 square is going to be 16. Oh, and this is 4 times 4 also, so that's going to be minus 16. So half of 16, so 0.5 times 16. But again, that just means half of 16, so it's just like dividing it by 2 minus 4. So 8 minus 4 would be 4. And again, we said that this graph should be a little kind of wider looking, whereas the other one was kind of stretched out and narrow looking. So let's go ahead and put our numbers in. So over 1, 8.5. Oops, that's going to be a little bit off the graph. Over 2, up 6. Over 3, 4.5. So 2, 4, and go a little bit halfway between there. Over 4, up 4. Over 5, up 4.5. 6, 6, 7, and then 8.5. That'd be a little bit off the graph right about there. Since it's just barely off, I'm going to go ahead and just put it on there. Oops. Now for this one, we're going to need to determine what kind of line we need, which this is going to tell us to use a dash line. So let's go ahead and use a dash line and try to get through as many of these points as we can. And I want this to look pretty nice, so there we go. All right, now last order of business will be to shade it, which in this case here I have y greater than, well, the y is greater and the mouth is open towards the y. So that means we shade the top side. Now be careful, because I've said this before. When you shade the top, I don't necessarily mean shade the side with the y, because if we look at it here, the y would be on the outside. But don't forget, this graph goes up and on forever. So eventually it will cross that y. So we say the top of the graph. So look for anywhere that would be the top. So if this was like rain, right, and you had like a cup in the rain, it'll be catching all the rain inside of that cup. So when we shade the inside, it's going to look like that. All right, and just to give you an idea too, because it's always a good idea to kind of put this in your mind, I'm going to go ahead and switch on over to Desmos just to show you what the graph would look like. So I'm going to have to punch it here, and I got Desmos on my my speed thingy. All right, so I wonder if you could even, okay, so yeah, so y less than 1 divided by 2, x square, and in this case here, you go to the keypad, push this for the square, and we got our parabola, and that looks kind of like what we already have, and that's going to be minus 4x, and that's going to move it over, so you notice that it's kind of moved over to the right now as I put that in, and as I put plus 12 in there, it's going to move the whole graph up, so the graph is not going to change shape, so plus 12, it just moves up. And it's kind of hard to, well, what we would see on the graph looks something like this, because our graph we can only see 8. So it looks something like that. But again, if you go up, yeah, you see that it does have a lot more above it. And just a reminder, you also need to fill out the table on these things, because that is one of the objectives, is to graph by table. So if you leave the table blank, I know some of you guys like to use Desmos, but you need that table as well. I'm going to go back over here. Oops. Said go back. Okay, I'm not sure what you guys are seeing, but all right, there we go. So that's it for today. That's the whole lesson. I think that went on a little bit longer than it should have, but oh well. So don't forget to join us again on Thursday. So Thursday is going to be the next day. Well, I'll see you then. Bye-bye.